Here we are again. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the clustered nature of this map. I think I'll have to draw with thinner lines if I do one with quite this much info so close together in future. Right, so where we left off, we were going to talk about R1b next. We talked about R1a. So this is a brief overview of the migrations of R1b. As we discussed earlier, 28,000 years. By that point, R1a and R1b are distinguishable, and sometime before 20,000 years ago, the ancestors of R1b have already moved to the region that lies to the south of the Caucasus and to the north of the Mesopotamian area. So in the Levant there. Southeast of Turkey was one of the early places where they were found. They were suggested to have been the first to domesticate cattle there in 8,000 or 9,000 years ago, alongside their southern J2 neighbours. So then it splits off into lots of different directions from this homeland, assuming this is the homeland. And I would also just like to point out that there is a population where this arrow starts from heading from R1. There is a population there that carries R1b as well. So it could well be that that's where the founding population was. But all of the major clades have spread out from this region in the North Levant. So the first clade to split off is the clade that today is only present in the Levant and Africa, but it does actually head to West Europe, but it's replaced later in Western Europe. So as we can see, sometime before, it's a rough date, but sometime before 15,000 years, seems to have moved into Africa. Obviously Egypt, many dynasties belong to R1b there. And then by 8,000 it's found in Western Europe. It's found in a little culture on the southern coast of the east of Spain. So that's the VA-date branch. That's the African and Levantine branch, which is the deepest clade, the most removed from the other branches. Then we have a movement into the west of Anatolia around 8,000 years ago, and then 7,000 years ago it expands to the north, and then there are various cultures developed there. So it expands to the north. It actually expands to the north earlier. There's an example in a culture in Russia from 8,000 years ago. But by 7,000 it's become a prominent or dominant lineage just north of the Caucasus on the Pontic-Caspian steppe there. And then so there's a culture called Repin that is established on the Caspian Sea in 6,000 years ago, and then Yamnaya, which is associated with the movement to Hallstatt, which is shown. I'll get to Hallstatt later, but Yamna seems to be involved with the founding of Hallstatt. So Yamnaya was founded 5,000 years ago, 5,000 years before present, and then so from Repin there's a migration around the same time as Repin is happening at north of the Caspian Sea. A population moves east from there and quite some distance and establishes the Afanasevo culture in Siberia, and an offshoot of this people are the Tocharians, who are a population who founded 4,000 years ago, and the Tocharians leave their mark on the Uyghur population of northwest China today. They're famous for the Tarim mummies, which you may have heard of. Well worth going and looking up. So Tocharian is an extinct branch of the Indo-European languages, discovered quite late, but it was present there. And then we have later expansions. There are actually various waves of migration to the west of Europe, as you can see here. First, the African and Levantine branch arrives in 8000, then it moves throughout Iberia in 7000, and then the Bell-beakers move in to the west of Europe in 4000, and then they move into Iberia. So that's the second wave of R1b into Iberia in 3000 years ago. And then we have a third wave from the Hallstatt, which Hallstatt is founded 3000 years ago, and then the culture lasts for a fairly long period, and it spreads to the surrounding area and then spreads further to the whole of the west of Europe and to certain regions of southern Europe as well. Hallstatt, I can do a whole video on the Hallstatt expansion. Hallstatt was a Proto-Celtic society, or rather the first Celtic proper society. So the Celtic language survived out west, as we know, in Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, Cornwall, and the Breton territories. But this Celtic civilization did leave an even more substantial mark on the genetics, especially the paternity of Western Europeans and Europeans as a whole. So, right, I hope you enjoyed. Now, the next video will be a more in-depth look at the subclades of R1. Thank you.